Good afternoon, and welcome to this lunchtime reflection from St. Peter Mancroft Church, whether you are here in the church or watching online. If you are in the church, please feel free to continue your visit, looking around, enjoying the space. My name is Catherine Waddams. I'm a lay minister here. And today I want to talk about anxiety and whether it can be used positively rather than be something that we suffer from. There certainly seems to be plenty to worry about in the world as we take stock at the beginning of 2023. Wars throughout the world, including in Europe, poverty and destitution, attacks on democracy, increasing pressure on personal budgets, and looming over all of this, a climate change crisis. We've been told about climate dangers for decades, but I found it all too easy to think the problems were an awfully long way into the future, and perhaps technology would somehow, in some unknown way, find a solution, or at least okay ways of coping. And past crises have sometimes been resolved in this way. I started studying oil and gas markets 50 years ago, when the concern was that we would run out of supplies. Now we are worried about how quickly we can stop using such carbon fuels. But right now, the climate change crisis suddenly feels very real, very upon us, as we experience hot summers, warm winters, unseasonal rainfall or lack of it, and increasing numbers and severity of extreme climate events like storms and wildfires. All this certainly gets me worried about the climate. And climate anxiety is a recognized psychological phenomenon, especially and perhaps understandably amongst young people. So surely this worry stirs me on behalf of the planet to take immediate and strong action. Well, no, not really. I still contribute to the problem by burning fossil fuels at home, by using the car and sometimes air transport to visit family overseas. I eat a diet which puts pressure on the planet, even though I am doing a little bit less of all of these things. Sometimes the problem just seems overwhelming. What difference can I make with my small changes? Thinking about it in its helpless way naturally increases my anxiety, and eventually I'm tempted to ignore the problem for my own sanity, or let it be crowded out by more immediate challenges where I feel I can improve things. It's really easy to see why this happens. Our culture encourages us to focus on responsibility for ourselves and our families as individuals. But for the climate, change will only come if enough other people act as well. It's an example of what's sometimes called the tragedy of the commons, first recognized in terms of overgrazing common pasture land. If I am the only one to reduce the amount my animals feed on such common land, the overgrazing will continue. It needs widespread self-restraint if the pasture is to be saved for future animals to feed on and generations to benefit from. And if everyone thinks like that, each one of us thinks we can't do anything on our own, then there'll be continued pressure on that common pasture. Without joint action, no one may change their behavior, with consequent tragedy. And of course, this is true of the broader issue of climate change. I need to know about the problem and how it affects everybody on Earth and their future. But acting alone won't achieve much, and I need to believe that other people will respond too. I guess that's why we have these high-profile climate conferences, to encourage that joint initiative. Acting together can indeed be effective. There's been an experiment this winter to encourage individual households to shift their electricity demand so there's less pressure at peak times. And they've surprised the experts in their success, saving the need for more costly and environment-damaging supplies. The reason it's worked is that it's been a joint effort and it's been coordinated. As an individual household, we couldn't affect the system in this way on our own, but as part of a joint effort, more than 1 million households have saved enough at one peak time to save on using a fossil fuel burning plant with all its polluting emissions. Individual effort can contribute through coordination, through encouraging each other, through recognizing what can be done, though we shouldn't kid ourselves that the problem is easily solved. There's an issue of justice too. I'm lucky enough to be able to reduce carbon emissions through lowering our heating, reducing polluting travel, changing our diet or other choices, because I have been contributing pretty heavily to the problem with my lifestyle. Not only can I make a difference, it's only fair that I should do so. Looking for ways to join with others, either through organisation, like that shifting peak demand exercise, or encourage each other so that together we can make a difference, is a great place to start. It's an irony that although we need collective action, every little individual contribution does help. I know that I need to be more ambitious, but I'm trying not to be discouraged by my first feeble attempts. As with similar issues like reducing the use of plastics, these issues will be solved not by a few people making perfect decisions, but by lots of us contributing less than perfectly. I can, of course, join others in putting pressure on politicians of the world, of the nation, at local level, and others who can help make bigger changes, perhaps through legislation which will require communal action, perhaps through regulatory reform to encourage individuals to make good decisions for the planet, perhaps through coordinating many individual efforts. But I can still be overcome by paralyzing anxiety, which is, of course, part of our humanity. In evolutionary terms, anxiety serves a very useful purpose. It makes us careful about immediate dangers. But there are many examples of just how destructive it can become. When I face such challenges, I'm encouraged by a hymn which we sing at this time of year, as we remember the gifts brought to Jesus as a child. You probably know it. O worship the Lord in the beauty of holiness. The words were written by John Samuel Bewley Monsell, a 19th century Irish clergyman who wrote several other hymns, including Fight the Good Fight. Plenty of action there. But in this Epiphany hymn, my favourite part, the second verse, goes as follows. Low at his feet lay thy burden of carefulness, high on his heart he will bear it for thee. Comfort thy sorrows and answer thy prayerfulness, guiding thy steps as may best for thee be. I found these words really useful when I have felt overwhelmed by carefulness. Although the author didn't suffer from climate anxiety, he faced his own sorrows. His eldest son died on his way to the Crimean War, and one of his daughters also died in her 20s, well before her father. But the words suggest that whatever our burdens of carefulness, our anxieties, we can offer them to God, almost as a gift of our feelings, like those brought to Jesus by the wise people from the East. He will accept our gift and carry our burden high on his heart. That doesn't mean everything will suddenly be all right, kissed better, so to speak. But it does mean that we can put down that anxiety, find comfort for our sorrow, and find that our steps may indeed be guided as is best for us and for the world. By sharing the burden with God, with others, we can be freed to take action and make positive changes on our own and with other people.